No one knows. Who could they wait? It's like a game. Anyone knows.
Science shows us that Antarctica is many things. Extremely cold, extremely vast, mostly unspoiled, and a wholly unique environment in our world. But there are some who claim that there's more to it than that, and the true nature of an 1961 Antarctic Treaty, which it's claimed stops anybody from ever going to the South Pole. But what exactly does the treaty address? To regulate the use of Antarctica is all part of an international effort to keep the truth of the place under wraps. Perhaps the strongest counter-argument here, though, is that it's not really the case that the treaty stops anybody from going to this most mysterious land. It bans military activity there, yes, but not scientific activity. And there are lots of bases and outposts in Antarctica right now conducting important research. There are some limited opportunities for tourism, too, with Antarctic cruises gaining popularity. So much so that now tens of thousands of people visit Antarctica every year. It's still true that our most southerly continent is a wholly unforgiving place, however, and many explorers have died trying to explore it. But many expeditions, including the infamous Terra Nova expedition, which ended with the deaths of 5 British pioneers, are and were funded and endorsed by the world's governments and even the world's public. One major problem with the ice wall theory, then, is why would the global establishment support science and exploratory missions to Antarctica if it had a vested interest in keeping people in the dark about what's really there? The flat Earth theory triggers the question but can't provide the answers, other than the whole thing being a multifaceted international cover-up. Significantly, reports in 2019 claimed that a group of flat earthers had announced that they were going to fund their own expedition to Antarctica to see and prove the ice wall theory. But that mission never happened, or at least was later denied by the group, and so the proof was never found. Nevertheless, it shouldn't be forgotten that it is at least difficult to get into Antarctica, and access is often restricted. You'd struggle, for example, to just steer your own boat to the Arctic shore, legally dock, and build your own house and settlement there. For most people, Antarctic opportunities are generally limited to expensive cruises and/or you becoming a scientist successful enough to win a research position there. Failing that, and if you fancy an altogether different type of challenge, you could always enter the Antarctica Marathon, which is held every year. But whatever your reason for traveling, it's not as though you wouldn't encounter an ice wall when you got there. You certainly would do. That's because the edge of the Antarctic ice shelf looks a lot like a large wall made of ice, because it extends so far above sea level. Interestingly, these walls are actually hugely important to the Antarctic climate, because they help the continent to ward off some of the effects of global warming, including rising sea levels. But clearly they're not the same kind of ice walls as those that feature so crucially in the flat Earth theory. They are massive and majestic, that much is true. But modern science doesn't believe that what's hiding behind them is a bottomless drop into the vacuum of space. Ultimately, we so far have no evidence that there really is a wall like this out there. A wall that some theorists claim is separating our earthly plane from the rest of the cosmos, keeping us all penned in just enough to prevent us from slipping off the flatness and into the abyss. For opponents of the flat Earth theory, modern Antarctica is a place of science, not speculation. And while the likes of NASA do have operations out there, including at the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, the US doesn't have a territorial claim. Neither does Russia, China, nor so many other world leaders. So, if the ice wall is there, then none of those world leaders are especially interested in it. But what's perhaps more likely is that there's just nothing to be found. Not unless we decide to ignore the entirety of Antarctic history until this point, and deny all images of Earth from space that clearly show Antarctica and the curvature of the Earth.